Hello and welcome to episode 11 of the Cinema 4D Basics. In this episode we're going to be covering how you can use a PSD in order to texture your files, and the benefits of using the PSD is you can actually use the layers in the PSD as different texture layers for your actual Cinema 4D objects. So that's what we're going to be covering in this tutorial. Without further ado, let's jump into Cinema 4D and see what we can see. Oh man, it is a hot day today, 27 degrees centigrade. I hope you're keeping cool out there if you're watching this recently after it was recorded. If not, then, well, I still hope you're happy. Firstly, the first thing we're going to do, I've created a cylinder here. So we have a cylinder here. I'm going to create a label to wrap around it. So we have a radius of 500 millimeters for this cylinder. We're going to consult the Omni calculator to just work out the circumference of that. So a radius of 500 millimeters should give us a circumference of 3141.59, which is pretty much exactly pi. So that's pretty cool, because obviously the diameter being 100 centimeters, that would make perfect sense. So let's jump in here. So basically, we've got our cylinder, so that's 2000 millimeter size. And the next thing we're going to do, we're just going to hop into Photoshop and create a new document. So let me just change my input. And here we are in Photoshop. Okay, so come here, you. Okay, new file. So we want this to be, I'm going to work in pixels for this, because, you know, as long as the ratio is correct, it shouldn't really matter whether you work in pixels. Obviously with 3D and screen-based stuff, pixels give you a little bit greater control than, say, millimeters or centimeters, where you're working out like 300 pixels per inch or whatever. So if I just work directly in pixels, it gives me more granular control over that. So that's why I do it. But if I'm working for print, obviously I work in kind of 300 dpi print resolution, and etc, depending on the medium. And obviously, you know, with digital medium these days, it's getting better and better, so, you know, it's all much of a muchness, and I still just prefer to work in pixels personally for media works. I'm familiar with pixels. I've been doing this a long time, so that is why. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to create a new document, which is 3141. I'm going to ignore the 0.59 because that's not really going to make too much of a difference. And the next thing we're going to do is we need a height of 2000 pixels. That will match our cylinder that we have in Cinema 4D, which is 500 millimeter radius and 2000 millimeters high. You know, I can increase the, you know, I can kind of like, if I work in smart objects, and I'm going to show you why that works, because if I work in smart objects, it will, any increase I make to file size with smart objects will just interpolate the gaps, because they're vector based. That's why I do it. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to open Adobe Illustrator and create a new file there. And so I don't want A4. I'm going to work in Illustrator as well in pixels. So hang on a second, you can't see what I'm doing. Let me just change my screen capture yet again to Adobe Illustrator. Are we seeing Illustrator here? No.
Approximately 10 hours later.
Aha, now we have Illustrator. Cool. So I think it was because I had the menu open and it wasn't registering that it had picked up Illustrator. So here we are in Illustrator now. I had to create a new file because I thought that was what the problem was. It probably wasn't, but let's never worry about it. Shift-O in Illustrator allows you to change your artboard size, which is groovy. Up here we can see we have an artboard size of A4, which I'm going to change. I think we need to, oopsie. Okay, so Option Command P will allow us to change our units and our bleed, etc. in Adobe Illustrator. I know this is an Illustrator tutorial, but I'm going to tell you about it as I go. So pixels, and let's do that. And then Shift-O to edit our artboard size. And we're going to do the same as we did for Photoshop, which was, if I can remember the shortcuts. No, oh God. Why do you open Bridge, you bugger? Oh, do you know I hate Adobe Bridge? It just opens whatever it damn well feels like it. It's frustrating. Anyway, image size. 3141 by 2000. So let's just do this one. 3141 by 2000. Kabushi. Here we go. And yes, that's massive. Well, anyway, it's cool. So right, what we're going to do here, we're going to create an Illustrator. We don't need to actually save this Illustrator file because once we copy paste it into Photoshop, it will just be in Photoshop as a kind of a. It'll be saved in Photoshop in some random folder in the Photoshop thing. That's all I know. I didn't make Photoshop. So here we go. So let's just make a kind of a funky little graphic here. I'm gonna hit Command U to activate my smart guides if they're not already active, and if they are, yeah, they were already active. Just weren't registering. And here we go. So I'm gonna just turn that off. Turn this on and make it kind of a, I don't know. Yeah, that color. Oh, it's a bit primary. That's a bit RGB. That is. Okay, let's choose a little bit more. Something around here. Something around that's a bit dark. Am I feeling it? No, do you know what? I'm gonna go for hot pink. Let's just go for 100% magenta. I love 100% magenta. It's a great color. There we go. Nice and. Oh, that's quite spicy. That's quite spicy. But anyway, we're not here to be. It's not a design lesson. It's a tech lesson. So anyway, if it was a design lesson, we'd be considering that. But there's no point wasting time. So let's go. Make it look cool. Ironically, this does not look cool, and but we can make it look a little bit cooler if we just go for some Futura, because obviously, and let's see, object type, change case, title case, boom. Now, lowercase, all lowercase, please. Bing, bong, bang, lowercase. Make it look cool. Tighten that. If you hit Option, one of the keyboard, the arrow keys, you can adjust your tracking. And you know, if you were to have like type on multiple lines, you can use the up and down arrow keys to adjust your leading, and etc. etc. So that's where we're at with that. Obviously, I'm going to make that text white. You can do that with the color picker, or you can just use your eyedropper tool. But I don't have any white on the artboard, so I'm going to just use it this one. Groovy. So here we go. I'm kind of inclined to mess around with this because I'm kind of like that. I do apologize. Yeah. It can't look bad, you know. I don't like it looking bad. You know, it's important to me to make it look cool. It's literally what I called my company. If you can call it a company, it's just me. Maybe I'll take on someone at some point, but let's just do this, right? Make it look cool. Make it look cool. Make it look cool. Maybe look groovy. Mild. Cool. So it's not a cool color. Sorry. It's normally like it's just out of context. I think it's more of an accent color than a fill color. So let's go a little bit more, cherry. Bit more cherry. We're in CMYK mode. Obviously, we're working with Cinema 4D, which is a screen-based thing. So perhaps if we just change the document color mode to RGB, we might have a little bit more success with our color reproduction. So that's something to bear in mind. A little bit of that. Yeah, that's looking kind of okay-ish. Maybe I'll just go for yellow there, and we've kind of got a roughly complementary palette. As much as it pains me, I'm going to leave it there because this isn't about this. This is just, right, anyway, as I said, you don't have to save this, but I do have to unlock that layer, which is Option Command 2, and that will then, so if I hit Command 2, that'll lock any layer. If I hit Option Command 2, it unlocks all layers. So I'm just going to hit that, Command A, Command C, hop on into Photoshop, and I'm going to hit, in my Photoshop, it is Shift Command V to paste from Illustrator. Let me just, change the macOS screen capture in OBS Studio. Back to Photoshop. Yes, anyway. I've set it up weird. Command V doesn't seem to work. Sometimes it might be Command V on your system, but on my system it's Shift Command V. And that will let me activate, so it'll paste from Illustrator, but it'll give me the option to hit Smart Objects, which is you should have this selected, and boom. We have it. See, it's just filling that space because we sorted our ratios. I've got an awfully bad habit of not doing that in my commercial work, and I'm jiggery poking it the whole time. But you know, that's me being an idiot. So the next thing I want to show you is, let's just lose the background. We don't need the background. So okay, let's call this. Oh, I need to save it. Where am I going to save it? Oh, I'm going to have to actually save this because we're working between files. I'm just going to save it to the desktop. And put a label .psd, which means I'll also have to save Cinema 4D. I'm not going to show you saving Cinema 4D because that would be just like, it's going to take me like 2 seconds. But just call it can. Okay, now we're going to call this base layer, and the reason that is because I want to show you how to make a metallic effect. See, in my job, I work for a lot of people who kind of do like when I render something, I design the print thing, but also I send like 3D renders, and a lot of the time, for instance, I've got my rescue bears down here. Anyway, yeah, you got metallic areas on a label, and you want those represented in 3D, but you also want to work directly from your Illustrator artwork, which is where this comes in. And so I've got this now in Photoshop. What I'm going to do, right click on it. Okay, you can't see that, that's annoying. So you right click on this. There is an option. Hang on, let me just see if I can just mess around with this a bit. No. Oh dear, dear. I wish you could see that. Okay, so basically, if you right click on this, you scroll down, and there's an option that says New Smart Object via Copy. That's the one you want. So that'll give you because if you copy paste a smart object, and you open that back up in Illustrator, and then you save it back to Photoshop, all instances of that smart object will be updated. So you need to create a new smart object via copy in order to edit them individually, and that's what we need to do, because I want to knock out the background layer on the base layer, but I want to call this the metallic layer, and we'll jump on into Adobe Illustrator. Let me just adjust my OBS again. Adobe Illustrator, boosh. Alright, so we have that there. So what we want to do here, we don't want to delete this because I want to have the metallic and make it look cool, but I want this as an what do you call the opposite of metallic? Like non-shiny. So we want this here. So basically, but what will happen is if I delete this, when I go back into Photoshop, alright, save that down. Okay, sometimes it takes a bit of jiggery pokery, but you see in Photoshop, if I go back in here, what's happened is it's nudged it out. Let me just show you what happens if what happens when it's difficult. So I'm working in this thing where I have to flick between programs. It doesn't just represent my screen. But if I do the same thing I just did and just delete the background there, and I go back into Photoshop, you see that happens. That right there. Because it doesn't have the same objects in the Illustrator file to align with, so it misaligns. However, the way around that is, if I go back into Adobe Illustrator 2023, and undo that. Okay, so what I want to do, so I want to just knock the color out of this rectangle, but leave the rectangle. So if I just knock that color out there, keeps it making looking cool, and I've saved that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to Photoshop, then I'm going to knock into Photoshop here, and you see it just lines straight up. So that's a handy little tip that you can use. Anyway, now we're kind of done making a label. I'm not going to spend all night on this because that would defeat the object of the lesson. I might do a graphic design kind of series or whatever. Graphic design is an awfully philosophical thing, and it's very contextual. It's very dependent on client opinion, and there's a lot of framing involved with graphic design. It's one of the things that it's a lot more. I feel that it's a lot more kind of not human, but it's less technical. And as technical as it is, graphic design can be close to fine art, or it can be close to technical things like production. It's a funny beast. It's kind of graphic design operates on a sliding scale, and obviously the reason I'm waxing lyrical about graphic design is because there's an element of graphic design to this, as rudimentary as it is. There's a small element, and obviously Future is my favorite font. So the next thing we're going to do, back into Cinema 4D. Okay, now we need to create a new default material. Double click on that bad boy, and okay, let's just undo that because I haven't gone into OBS Studio and changed it to Cinema 4D. So Cinema 4D, here we go. Boom. There we go. All right. So anyway, we'll crack on, and we go new default material, and okay, double click that. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to call in our. This isn't a material design lesson per se. There's lots of options here, but we're going to just call in our label. I'll click OK on that, and our label's there. Okay, so what I want to do is I don't want to texture the top and bottom of this cylinder, so I'm going to leave it editable for now, but I might need to change to cylindrical. So let me just call this label base. It's important to name your layers. Sometimes you can get away without doing it, but the white heat of a production environment is, no one will shoot you if you kind of don't name your layers as meticulous as you should. But it's good practice to do it, and it does save you time, honestly. So it's good to do. So we have label.psd here. So I'm going to do. I'll reveal that in a moment. But okay, we're going to just apply this to this cylinder. Okay. So we have UVW mapping applied by default. I haven't boosted up my edges yet, but so because it's the right ratio, it kind of aligns properly. And so we're going to just hop into here and into the viewport, and then we're going to change the texture preview size to a higher resolution than the default. And what that's going to do is that is going to allow us to just see it a bit more crisp and a bit more accurately. Okay, so there we go. So we're going to click this one. I might need to mess around with this, but I'm going to hit cylindrical, and that'll just remove that there because it's wrapping it round like a cylinder. Let me just turn my floor off in the viewport. It'll render fine, but yeah. So there we go. There we have our make it look cool. All right. So the next thing we want to do, we want to have our label base. Colors there. So I'm just going to leave it the default specular for the matte layer. The opposite metallic matte. In the context of this, it is. I don't know if it is mathematically, but that's not the point of this lesson. So, so next thing we're going to do. What you need to do is create a new. So we copy paste this layer. Okay, call it label base. I'm going to call this one metallic. Boosh. So we have a metallic layer now. What are we going to do with this? We're going to add it here. But the thing is, right, you can't seem to like stack layers on top of each other in Cinema 4D and yet retain their dimensions. Because look, you can do all sorts of stuff here. Look at these sliders. You can do all sorts of stuff there. You don't really want to do, if you messed around with these to like 0.001 just to get it absolutely accurate, you don't want to just add another one here like this. And that'll be completely different. The best thing to do, and it's a tricky one to kind of explain, but if you just copy paste the cylinder here, look, and then you take your metallic. Actually, if I actually change this to metallic, it'll be easier. And I also need to show you how to divvy out the layers inside the PSD via Cinema 4D. So let's do that first. So label base, okay. So all we're going to do here is go in here, color. And then click on this thing here. And then our layer set option here. And this gives the option to choose a layer set. So we're going to go for the base layer. We don't need any of these just yet. And we're going to hit OK. Base layer. Okay. Yeah. So the base layer still has the typography on it. Also I didn't turn it off. But that's fine because it will be applied over. The metallic will be applied over the base anyway, so it doesn't matter. So we'll leave that here for now. And we're going to edit our metallic layer. The metallic layer will need an alpha channel, because if you don't have an alpha channel, obviously it'll just look weird. It will just overdo everything you've done with the layer on top. So you're applying this over an existing layer on your object. So we just go in here and we look up our layers again, and we'll select the metallic layer. Okay, so we hit that one. So that's knocked that out for us there in black because it's not selecting the blue or the purple background. So we're going to go right click on texture, the word texture. We'll right click on that and copy it. Now we need to copy that into our alpha channel there. We'll just right click that there. That's kind of knocked all of it out for us there, you see. And if I just go in here, I need to make sure layer alpha is checked, and it's obviously selected the metallic there for us because that's what we had in color. And now what we have is that. So okay, I'm just going to delete this and show you again. So okay, what we need to do to apply this exactly over where it was before, so it lines up perfectly, like as if it was real life printed. We need to copy paste the entire object. And what we do is drag the metallic onto this here, and then we'll drag this down here. And that way, we can delete this, and now we have, although it doesn't look any different, once we apply some reflectance, so we're going to add a GGX here, all of a sudden we've got this reflectance thing. So if I was to delete that, Obviously, you'd have the base layer, but now we have metallic layer on top. We can have some funky time with it. Copy that reflectance, paste that in there. You can have it in yellow, or if you don't want to do that, delete that. Yeah, hang on, no. Clear that. You can clear that. Color, clear that, and then change the color to whatever color you want. As long as it's you should be able to change the color. Yeah, there you go. So you can change the color there. So if you want, obviously the reflections was overriding that, so that's what happened. So let's just remove that. Add a GGX, and the GGX color will override that. So if you're happy with the color, you can always just copy paste your color to it, to your reflectance color, paste, and that'll give you a raid. Let's go for yellow though, because that's the color we wanted. And you know what as well you can do, right? You can. So in the reflectance here, you have your color here. This will accept hex values. So I'm just gonna go in Photoshop. I'm not going to show you in Photoshop. I'm going to use the eyedropper tool to sample the yellow. Double click on it to copy the hex code on in Photoshop, and I'm going to come back in here. I'm going to paste this hex code in here, and that's going to give us our accurate color representation of what we had. I'm just going to do it here as well. And so there we go. And obviously I've got my light rig, which is, I'm getting close to doing the tutorial for that actually. Obviously my floor is turned off. I'm going to turn it on. And here we have our metallicized, but with a matte background text. So you can't really see it here because my rig's not, I'm not going to mess around with the rig too much. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to delete these, all of them. Maybe except for the floor and the background. And then what we're going to do, let's just rotate this so you can see the make it look cool text. I'm going to add an HDRI. You know, there's loads of HDRIs built into Cinema 4D, so let's just look for one of those. And we'll just select one of these HDRI files, which, I mean, I do like to pick around a lot. But we'll find one that works. This one will be alright, won't it? That'll come in there as a standard color channel. But the best thing to do is copy that, uncheck color, uncheck reflectance, check luminance, and paste into the luminance texture. And then when you can do that as well, click on this one, right? Hang on a second. You don't know that one. You click on this one and change it to a filter. And that will allow you to edit the actual HDRI file as well. So you know you can change the saturation in there, you can adjust the lightness, the brightness, the tightness. Oh, sorry, that just rhymed. You get the gist. So that's what you can do in there, which is nice. I'm gonna leave it the default now because I just want to apply it to that sphere. So drag that over to the sphere, and let's see. So we have some reflections going on there. Now what I normally do, because the floor will knock your reflections out. That's always a bit dodgy. What you can do is you can use the compositing tag, like I showed you in the last tutorial, or maybe it was one before, I can't remember. But you know, you can use the compositing tag to knock the floor out. And you can make the floor smaller. And let's just hit it to orthographic views. You know, you can make the actual floor smaller. Oh, that's not the floor. This one, you can make the floor smaller. See, and you know, you just do it as you need to. But ultimately, if you want, you can do whatever you want, can't you? It's your creative journey. But we could knock the floor out with the compositing tag. But you know, I'm not gonna do that. You just have to watch the other tutorial and do that, because that will be the best way to learn. I watch a lot of tutorials in this, but most of the stuff I learned, I figured out myself, because the only way to do it is jump in, get your hands dirty, and that'll work. But yeah, so you can see here we've obviously got our metallic text against the matte background. I'm gonna decrease the roughness so you can see a bit more metallic there. You see, and you know, you can change your layer. Your Fresnel is a good one. A good one is like dielectric, because that will you know, soften the reflections, and conductor will kind of make them a little bit more metallic. And that's, you know, there's loads of settings, but that needs to be a material design tutorial, not just the PSD tutorial. So I believe that will conclude our lesson for tonight. So best of luck with your creative journey, and namaste. I'll bid you all a fond farewell until next time, my friends. Stay safe out there.